So again, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for being at this presentation. My name is David Copp. I'm an assistant professor of teaching in MAE at UC Irvine. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey implementing specifications grading for the first time the last 2 quarters here at UCI. And I liked it so much that I implemented in multiple classes. So I'm currently implementing it in a lecture-based class. But in this talk, I'm going to mainly focus on its implementation in some engineering design project courses. But I'm happy to answer questions about either. So to give you a little bit of background about MAE design project courses, we have a bunch of them here in the MAE department, and they're very diverse. So it's a lot of fun to teach these different courses. We specifically have 2 different course codes. One is for senior design, and one is for students from freshmen to seniors, and they can take these courses to get hands-on skills, to apply their domain-specific knowledge they're learning in their other classes to hands-on projects. And one of the key things about this is that these different projects are all separate courses. So they all have their own project advisor and instructor. And so with that, I've been able to implement specifications grading in 3 courses for 3 of these different projects. And just in general, we have about 450 students each year in all of these project courses. Like I said, they're very diverse projects. We have about 30 different projects. About half of them have competitions, meaning students design and build something to go and compete, whether it's a race car or an airplane or something like that. The teams are also diverse in terms of size. So we have very small teams that maybe work on small robotics or research related projects, to teams with over 40 to even close to 100 students. High level of student engagement in these courses. So they do all the planning and execution. They learn about leadership and teaming. And so it's a really sort of dynamic environment that looks very different depending on the project and the students involved. So I'll say right off the bat that I think specifications grading works very well in this format. So I've enjoyed doing it, and I think the students appreciated it as well. So to talk a little bit about the implementation here, first of all, like with any course, you have to set up the learning outcomes and assessments to be able to assess those outcomes. And specifications grading really helped me to revisit these and make sure that the course was, preparing the students in a way that I wanted it to. And so for these project-based courses, you'll see the learning objectives here on the left. And basically, they're going to be learning all of these things which fit somewhere into the engineering design process, which is shown in the graphic on the right. Okay, so depending on the project and the team, they're going to be working on very different things within this design process. But there's sort of 7 overall learning objectives that I hope they get from the course. One would be, just applying their technical knowledge to an open-ended problem. Another would be develop teaming skills, right? Communicating clearly, both written and verbally. And then things like considering social, ethical, and environmental impacts of the design, and also demonstrating project management abilities. So these types of things that they may not get holistically in their other courses. And then to assess these outcomes, we have a few different assignments. So one would be team organization. So the students have to organize themselves, sort of project management, who's leading, how do you break down the work among the students? They have to communicate in a bunch of different ways. So they have to have a public-facing website. They have to have a poster for general audiences. They're giving, reports and presentations, and sort of weekly status updates, but they also reflect on their work, right? So we're giving them this open-ended experience so that hopefully they get to know what they're interested in learning and what they like doing, and hopefully take these things into their careers. So they're going to reflect on their experience, and they're also going to evaluate themselves and their peers. So with all of that, I went ahead and implemented specifications grading to make these assessments. And to do that, I focused on 2 main things for these different assignments, and these are 2 examples. So number 1 is the grade tracker, which you see on the right. So this is really the student's outline to how do they receive a particular letter grade. And I really like specifications grading because it's clear upfront to students, what do they need to do to get a particular grade. And then the other thing is for each of these assignments, there's a particular rubric, right? And the rubric is very descriptive, but not prescriptive. So I'm telling the students what I'm looking for, what I expect them to demonstrate without telling them how to do it. And I found that in these types of courses, because the projects are so different, right? They're not all demonstrating or, supplying the exact same thing. So it took me quite a while to come up with these rubrics in order to be able to, sort of use the same rubric for a bunch of different projects. But I think that was a really good learning experience for me as an instructor. And it also helped me then to, figure out how to assess the class effectively. So this is just one example rubric on the left-hand side for their sort of regular weekly updates. And so you can see I have it broken down into high pass, low pass, and no pass. And it's pretty clear, right? They have to demonstrate some learning, they're applying some of their knowledge, they're showing evidence of that. They have plans, right? This is related to project management and teaming. And then simply communication, right? Are these engineering drawings I can quickly understand? Is this digestible, in a presentation format? Things like that. And I found it's really easy to grade it using these rubrics rather than assigning points. It was a lot harder for me to figure out how to compare one project to another if I'm assigning points. But if I'm looking at it in the context of these rubric criteria, I found it a lot easier. And then, of course, part of this is mastery learning, right? So the students have opportunities to revise and resubmit things, which I also found really helpful in this context, right? As you're learning to communicate, you need a lot of practice. And so in order to get some feedback and then incorporate it in a resubmission, I found to be really helpful for the students. So that's a really quick overview of what the students were doing. Some quick results is that I essentially found no change in course grades as compared to traditional grading. So I was pleased with that. A couple of things students mentioned. They like the flexibility and opportunities to improve. So they like knowing how to get a particular grade, and they like being able to show improvement. Initially, they didn't like receiving no partial credit. They always want to come and talk to you about receiving another point here or there. But ultimately, I think they really understood that that the revision and resubmission process helped them learn a lot better. So I found that student buy-in and reiterating the advantages of this grading approach was important. And then to really summarize the takeaways for me is the pros are that it really shifted the student focus from gaining points to get a grade to really understanding things. So my conversations with students went from, I should really earn, a couple more points here or there to how do I understand this concept better? What did I do wrong so I can improve in the future? It's clear up front how they get a particular grade. They can learn from failure, which is also a really important skill in engineering, right? Lots of times things don't work the first time, in fact, most of the time. So being able to revise and resubmit is a lot like what they'll be doing in their future careers as engineers. I actually found it faster to grade initial work rather than trying to hunt for where to give partial credit. It was easy to say, this is good enough or not good enough. Simplified the grading. So now I could focus on feedback instead of assigning points. And I found that these clear and descriptive rubrics actually facilitated giving feedback. I didn't necessarily have to write down feedback for everything, but the rubrics sort of did it for me if I clicked through them. And then the students saw the feedback directly on the rubrics. I didn't necessarily have to write everything out. So the main con I found was that it was a large setup time in the sense that, I had to really think through the rubrics and how to, allow students to revise and resubmit, and to do this with multiple assignments and retake opportunities. So I found it as a con, but it also allowed me to really think more deeply about my course. So I think that was a good thing. So overall, really a lot of pros from this, and I'm happy I did this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. So thank you very much.